on briefly today that will help our students of the future understand and afford higher education to make their American dream possible. Thank you.
Senator from Illinois.
Mr. President, I thank my colleague from Delaware for speaking to some critical issues. It is a shame that we're not in a position where we can consider your amendments, but as you know and spoke to in your speech, the decision yesterday by the Republicans to go into a filibuster, which is what you were witnessing on the floor, which is why there's so few people, nothing really happening aside from some really outstanding speeches, is a decision which they've made time and again. This was rarely used in the history of the Senate, the filibuster. Oh, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Some people remember that movie. The 1960s and the Civil Rights debate. Remember that too. Sometimes during the Vietnam War, maybe. Rarely used, but now it has become routine, commonplace. So that day after weary day, people who subscribe to C-SPAN on their cable channels are calling into the cable providers asking for their money back because nothing's happening on the floor of the Senate. And whose fault is it? It's our fault. It's our fault. When an issue like this, the one that brought on this filibuster, is explained to the American people, they shake their heads and say, what are you doing in Washington? Here's what it's about. July 1st, the interest rate on student loan debts through the federal government doubles. It goes from 3.4% to 6.8%, unless we do something. So we have a bill we brought to the floor yesterday and said, let's bring this bill in, let's debate it, let's vote on it, let's change so that we can protect these students and their families. Let's change that increase back to the original 3.4%. What's it worth? For someone who borrows $20,000 over the course of college education, it's worth $4,000. Now, if that's your son or daughter, or you happen to co-sign with them, $4,000 is nothing to sneeze at. Pew did a survey of working families across America. I say to my colleague, the senator from Vermont, they did a survey of families across America, and they asked them a very basic question. Of you, the working family population, how many could come up with $2,000 in 30 days? $2,000 because of an emergency in your home. Something, a water pipe just broke. The furnace broke down. My daughter just went to the hospital. $2,000. Half. Half of working families in America have access to $2,000. So what does $4,000 more in interest being paid mean? For a senator, not much. For an average working person, a lot. So what happened yesterday? We called this bill and said, let's move to it, let's start debating it, let's get it done before July 1st. We all agree we should. President Obama, even Governor Romney said, get this done. Not a single Republican senator would vote with us. Not one. Not one senator would join us to bring the bill to the floor. That's why we sit here, literally wasting our time and the time of taxpayers over an issue that we shouldn't even have to debate. I don't know about you, Mr. President, but I had to borrow some money to go to school. And I borrowed it from the federal government. It's called the National Defense Education Act. They created it back in the late 50s, early 60s, because we were scared to death of the Russians and Sputnik, and we thought they could take over the world. They've got the bomb. Now they're the first in space with this little basketball-sized satellite. And so we said it's time for America to get up and get moving. And we created, for the first time in our history, student loans available to non-veterans. We gave help to veterans in the GI Bill, World War II, but these were for non-veterans. I got one. I signed up for it. And when I graduated from law school in the late 1960s, they added up all the money that I borrowed, college and law school, from the federal government. And I remember the day when I brought the letter home to my wife, baby in arms, another one on the way, and said, my student loans have all been added up. She said, how much? $8,500. She said, we'll never be able to pay that back. And I said, I know, but we got to try. We got a year before the first payment's due. So my first job paid $15,000 out of law school, just to put things in perspective. Now look what students are faced with today. You're lucky if you get out with the average indebtedness of $24,000. You're lucky. But for a lot of students, that isn't even possible. They get more deeply and deeply into debt to get through school. And then they say, now you told me to finish my education so I would have a better life, realize my dream. I can't quit now. I've got to borrow some more money. I've got to finish next year and the following year, or I've wasted it all. If I'm a college dropout, what do I have to show for it? No diploma, just the debt. So we ask families across Illinois to get in touch with us and tell us about student debt as they see it in their lives. Now, we know nationally that student debt in October of 2010, for the first time in history, surpassed credit card debt. People owe more money in student loans than all of the Americans owe on their credit cards. And it's growing, dramatically growing. And when you meet the families, it sometimes is a sobering moment. I was at a college in Chicago last week, brought up a student, lovely young lady, majoring in art, which my daughter majored in, so I have no problems with that. She's a great artist and doing well, thank goodness. But this young lady said, I'm about to get my bachelor's degree with a major in art, and my student indebtedness at this moment is $80,000, but I'm going on for a master's. I think it'll be about another $60,000 of debt. I'll bet she was 25 years old. And think about that. Think about what she has just done to herself. First, she did what she was told to do, get a college degree, but then she got so deeply into debt, she is going to come to realize, sadly come to realize, it's going to influence so many decisions in her life. Will she ever be able to buy the car, get married, buy the home, have children? Each one of those decisions along the way is going to be based on her student loan indebtedness. So is it right for us to keep the interest rate low on student loans? Of course. Why do we want to make it any worse for her or anyone else who borrows money after July 1st? We should be doing this, and we shouldn't be squabbling over it. We were sent here to solve these problems, not to go into filibusters. One more Republican filibuster. I don't want to get partisan about it, but they didn't provide a single vote, not one, to help us to move to this issue. So on our website, we ask families, come tell the stories. Now, I've talked about the young student. Many of those students have parents and grandparents who sign up to help them. Yep, we'll co-sign the note because we want our granddaughter, our daughter, to finish school. Let me help her. Mr. President, about 6 weeks ago, New York Times reported a story where a woman had her Social Security check garnished for student loans. No, it wasn't a loan she took out. It was a loan she guaranteed for her granddaughter. Her granddaughter defaulted. They went after Grandma. She now receives a smaller Social Security check because of the student loan and her goodness in helping her granddaughter. That's the reality of this debt. It trickles through the entire family. Families that guarantee loans, when they're in default, mom and dad keep working well past what they thought were retirement age. This, I have to say, the more I watch this, the more I'm concerned about this student debt bomb that's going to go off, if it hasn't already. I worry about what it's going to do to these families, and I worry about what it's going to do to the reputation of a college degree. There are people skeptical today about mortgages. Why would I take a mortgage on a home if the value of the home is going to plummet? That skepticism doesn't help us build home ownership and communities and neighborhoods. What if we reach the level of skepticism when it comes to education, higher education? So this is part of the conversation. Let me tell you some of the stories. Dwayne Nelson from Rockford contacted our office. Dwayne's daughter went to a private college that cost $30,000 a year. She's been a file clerk for 11 years since she graduated from college. He wanted to help her, but he lost his job in 2001. He says, once you fall on hard times, you can never get a good job in the finance or insurance industry. Your credit's no good, and bad credit means no good job. Then he decided to go back to school to get his MBA in marketing. Still with no decent pay, he couldn't repay his student loan. So he went back to school so he could defer the student loan again. Still, he doesn't have a job that pays enough for him to pay off his loan balance and help his daughter pay her balance. Mom and dad, deep in student debt, still struggling to find a decent paying job. Sharon Sykes from Chicago tells us a story about her son. She lost her job shortly before her son started college. Each semester his tuition kept going up, something we hear about very often. Her son's degree is in journalism and mass communication, not a field where you can find a lot of jobs these days. His loan payments are about to kick in. He works as a cook in an Irish pub. He makes enough for his basic expenses, food, and keeping his bicycle running so he can go back and forth to work. She said she honestly doesn't know what he's going to do when the student loan payments kick in. His debt, his state university tuition, has still left the family with more than $60,000 in loan, and he's cooking in an Irish pub. Sharon says she's in her 60s. Nobody's lining up to give her a job. She had hoped to be able to help her son pay off his loan so he could get started. She said he deserves a chance to follow his passion without being saddled with years of debt. Jill Shakely from Rockford. Jill started out at Rock Valley Community College. I think a smart decision. Go to community college if you're not sure or you at least want an affordable first year or two of college. Well, Jill started out at Rock Valley Community College, graduated in 2002, and said she was going to pursue a four-year degree. She didn't have any support from her family. They couldn't help her pay for it, so she took out student loans. Tuition was $26,000 a year and added up quickly. She doesn't own a home, makes a salary that some would say is pretty small. She spends a large percent of her salary on her loans. Jill would like to go back to school, but she can't take on any more debt. She's worried about how it will affect her future. She says keeping interest rates low is going to help students like her. Who wants to argue against this situation? Who believes that we ought to raise the cost of student loans? Who thinks that's in the best interest of this country in terms of encouraging young people to go to school and getting them out of school without a mountain of debt which crushes them? I mean, that's what this debate is all about. And the fact that we couldn't get one single vote from the other side of the aisle, not one, to move to this bill, to even debate it, is a sad commentary. This Senate chamber is supposed to be about deliberation, amendment, and debate. At the end of the day, we put our fate in the hands of those gathered here and have a vote, up or down, win or lose. I know, Mr. President, you've had some that have won and some that have lost, so have I. But that's what it's supposed to be all about. Instead, my voice echoes through an empty chamber. The people who forced the filibuster, who stopped us from taking up the student loans, are gone. Not a one of them's here. Last night I was one of the last speakers, and I looked over there to an empty side of the aisle and said, of all the people who objected to our going to bill, not a single one of them is here. They're all out to dinner. That isn't right. I know that you've been pushing, Mr. President, for some changes in the Senate rules. It would strike me that if you want to stop the consideration of a bill on the floor of the Senate, you ought to park your posterior in one of these chairs and be prepared to take on all comers to explain why. And if you don't have the time or inclination to do it, then for goodness sakes, don't start a filibuster. One of the rule changes that we've talked about says if it's that important to stop the business of the Senate, just like we're doing now, you ought to at least have to stay on the floor of the Senate to defend your position. Is that too much to ask? That you don't go out to dinner and check in the next day to make certain that lunch is going to be served on time? I think this issue gets to the heart of what our economy is facing, what families are facing, and what the Senate refuses to face. This Republican filibuster has stopped us from taking up a measure that would reduce the interest rate on student loans from 6.8% to 3.4%. In my state of Illinois, 365,000 students will be affected if that interest rate goes up. Isn't fair to them. It isn't fair at all. And it isn't fair to be stuck in the middle of a filibuster when we ought to be rolling up our sleeves and tackling this issue. Now, the House passed a bill on student loans, but just to give you an idea how there's a different approach to things. The House Republicans, with very little, if any, Democratic support, said, okay, we will lower the interest rate on student loans, and here's how we'll pay for it. We will take money out of a preventive health care program. In other words, we will reduce childhood immunizations, and the money that we save by not vaccinating children, we'll use that to bring student loan interest rates down. How about that for a Faustian choice? How about that for a deal with the devil? We'll run the risk that children will get childhood diseases, and we'll take the savings from that and help the kids who are in college. Is that what it's come to now? Your money or your life? That's the choice we have? That's all? I don't think so. Why is it that the tax code in this country has become a sacred document? You would think that some people, instead of putting their hand on the Bible and swearing to uphold the Constitution, put their hand on the Bible and swore to uphold the tax code as it stands, without a word being changed. I didn't. That tax code is a law, written by men and women, some of great intellect and some bowing to special interest. Our job every year is to look at it and see if it makes sense. The way we pay for the student loan interest rate to stay affordable is closing a loophole in the tax code used by accountants and lawyers to avoid paying taxes. They've made out pretty well under that provision for a while here. But why should they have that for life? Are they now entitled to that? Is this an entitlement they get for life? I don't think so. I think it's a loophole we can close, save the money, and reduce student loans, not at the expense of children being immunized against whooping cough and measles. That's what it comes down to. The House Republicans seem to think that's a pretty good trade-off. I don't. Let's at least debate it on the floor of the Senate instead of getting locked in a worthless filibuster again and again and again. That's where we are. Many of us have gone to our websites, official websites, and invited people living in our state to send us your stories about student loans. I've read 3 of them here. I could tell you many more from those that I've witnessed just this last week back in my state, going from Chicago to Peoria to Decatur and all points in between. The stories just come crushing in, one after the other. And they're reminders that things that we do on the floor of the United States Senate make a real difference in the lives of families across America. I've said it before, I wouldn't be standing here today without student loans. The government loaned me the money, and somehow or another I paid it back. Didn't think I could, but I did, hoping that the next generation could use that money to get their own student loans. It's part of kind of a trust that we have, one generation helping another. So are we going to let these students down? Or are we going to let this filibuster be the end of the conversation? I've listened to the Republican leader come to the floor day after day and say, oh, this is just a political stunt. Where's the stunt? What it comes down to is we want to bring the bill to the floor and open it to an amendment process. To my friends on the Republican side, give us your best ideas. Put them in amendment form, bring them to the floor, let's debate them, let's vote. We'll do the same. Who knows? We may find some common bipartisan agreement and get this problem solved. We won't get it solved stuck in another filibuster, which is where we are right now, wasting the time of the Senate, the time of the taxpayers, and endangering a lot of families across America who desperately need our help. Mr. President, I'd ask unanimous consent to make another statement for the record here and place it at a separate place.
Without objection.
I was in Tazewell County, which is Pekin, in the area of Pekin and East Peoria, Illinois, last week, at the Veterans Administration Commission, and talked to a number of vets from the Vietnam War and other conflicts. We talked about obvious questions, veterans' unemployment, what was happening with disability payments, and education for veterans, things that most vets are really concerned about. They face some pretty significant challenges, as we know. We promise these men and women, if you put up your hand and swear that you'll risk your life for America, we swear we'll be there when you come home. Just that basic. We've got to keep our word. As a nation, we have a sacred pledge to take care of veterans who served. I take it very seriously. I think both parties do, and we should. We also need to honor those who have lost their lives. Just a few weeks ago that they buried another soldier from that county. Huge turnout at the memorial service. And one particular local resident was doing his part to honor our fallen heroes in an extraordinary way. I learned about him when I visited Tazewell County. He's from Little York, Illinois, and he is known as the Flag Man. Larry Eckert is not a veteran, and there are no service members in his family. But in 2006, Larry Eckert attended a funeral for a soldier from his area that had died, and he said, you know what, there aren't enough flags here. So on his own, Larry bought 150 American flags and started hauling them in his truck to military funerals all across my state. As he puts it, I just honestly don't believe there's any such thing as too many flags for a soldier. Larry's inventory of 150 flags has grown to 2,200 flags, and he can line them up to 14 miles of a fallen soldier's final journey. Traveling in his old 1999 Ford van, Larry stripped down to one seat in the van to make room for all the flags. He has now graced more than 80 funerals from Wisconsin to Kentucky and Iowa to Indiana and certainly in his home state of Illinois. Last year, Larry drove 40,000 miles with his flags to these funerals. He covers all the costs out of his own pocket and a couple donations from friends. When asked why he does it, he simply said, "It's my way of giving back." Larry rarely uses the word "I." He's quick to praise all the volunteers, often organized by veterans organizations, who help him stake the flags in the ground along the funeral procession routes. Without him, he said, I could never get it all done. In one instance, over a long weekend, dozens of volunteers helped Larry install the 2,200 flags to honor a 23-year-old Army sergeant during his funeral. After the service, volunteers helped pack up the flags for the next stop. Volunteers range from kids as young as 3, assisting their parents, to an 83-year-old woman who wanted to help out in Orchardville, Illinois. When she was asked a reason for weathering the tough January Illinois cold to help, she said, "We can only bake so many tuna casseroles." Mr. President, this story is what America and the state of Illinois are all about. It is this common man, like Larry Eckert, following his heart and taking the initiative to do something extraordinary for our fallen heroes. And it's about a community rising to the occasion to lend its support and honor those who deserve so much of our gratitude. Larry may have said it best when he humbly stated, quote, "This is my feeble attempt to say thank you to every soldier who's ever served and fought to protect the freedoms that I have." Well, this speech today on the floor of the Senate is my feeble attempt to say thanks to you, Larry, and the countless Americans out there just like you, who step up and do their part to show our veterans how much their service means to each and every one of us. They embody the enduring spirit and values that make America great, and they make me proud to serve in the Senate and humbled to represent my state of Illinois. Thank you, Larry, and thanks to all the other Americans who are doing their part to support our veterans and their families. Mr. President, I yield the floor and suggest the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
President.
The senator from California.
Mr. President, I ask that the quorum call be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Mr. President, yesterday I spoke on the floor about the Democratic bill to reduce interest rates on student loans. And I was lamenting the fact that our Republican colleagues would not even permit us to turn to the bill. They were filibustering a motion to proceed to the bill, which meant that we could no longer work on it. That's why this floor today is so empty. We should have been here working on a student loan bill, which is so critical to so many college students and their families across the country. The interest rates on these student loans, which are the Stafford loans, the federal subsidized loans, is going to go from 3 to 6%, and we want to get it back down. And this is important to 7.5 million students and their families. And when I concluded my remarks, Senator Brown from Massachusetts took to the floor and he said he expressed shock that I was concerned about Republican filibusters and started to talk about how cooperative the Republicans have been, pointing to a few issues where we have worked together. Look, I am here to say that working together in a bipartisan manner on a few issues is fine. But we need to work together on a bipartisan manner on almost all the issues that we work on here because the American people are counting on us. So because there's a handful of issues on which the Republicans cooperated, let's not come down to the floor and say everything is perfect and Republicans aren't blocking us when in fact they are blocking us. Now, the Democrats essentially retook the Senate in '07. And since then, these Republican filibusters have been off the charts. And don't take my word for it. Listen to congressional scholars Thomas Mann and Norman Ornstein. They recently wrote an opinion piece in the Washington Post. It was based on a study. And I ask unanimous consent to put that into the record today, if I might, Mr. President. They talk about this study in this Washington Post article.
Without objection.
So here's what the title of their piece is. It says, "Let's just say it, the Republicans are the problem." And they explain that in the past they looked at the Congress and thought both parties were to blame. But on reflection, as they studied the facts here, not the rhetoric, but the facts, it was the Republicans that are causing all the problems. Here's what they write, quote, "The filibuster, once relegated to a handful of major national issues in a given Congress, became a routine weapon of obstruction, applied even to widely supported bills or presidential nominations." Now, all you have to do is watch the Senate, or certainly when you're in the Senate, you realize that these scholars, Mann and Ornstein, are absolutely right. Mr. President, in this Congress, the 112th Congress, we've already seen 48 Republican filibusters. 48 times the Republicans stopped us from doing our work here. But don't get the impression this was new behavior, because it didn't just start in the 112th Congress. It started way before. In the 111th Congress, which covered 2009 and 2010, Republicans conducted 91 filibusters. And in the 110th Congress, '07 and '08, they conducted 112 filibusters. So far this year, we've had 48 Republican filibusters. In the Congress before that, we had 91, and the one before that, we had 112. Mr. President, what does it mean? It means that in all those times, we were unable to do the work of the American people because one party stopped it. There have been more filibusters by the Republicans in the 6 years since Democrats took over the Senate than there were in the prior 10 years. And I want to remember one of those times, because I was sitting down there in the manager's chair, coming out of my committee, Environment and Public Works, with a near unanimous vote on a little program called the Economic Development Administration. And this EDA has been in place for, I want to say 50 years. It's been in place for 50 years, 5-0, not 15, 50 years, through presidents, Republican and Democratic. It's a beautiful program because what it does is it takes some modest federal funds and it leverages state money, local money, and private sector money. And it comes into areas that are having difficulty with job creation and invests that money there. And it creates, as a magnet, all of these contributions, and we have seen hundreds of thousands of jobs created as a result. So I come to the floor to get this little bill reauthorized, having come out of my committee with a strong bipartisan vote, filibuster. I stood down there for 5 days. I couldn't believe it. Filibustering a bill that would create and save hundreds of thousands of jobs. We also saw these Republican filibusters when we tried to say millionaires should pay their fair share. And that would have reduced the deficit by billions. Oh, no, they couldn't even stand to have us debate that. They filibustered. They filibustered a bill to eliminate tax subsidies to big oil and gas companies that are making record profits. And they're getting subsidies they've got for 30, 40 years. No. We weren't allowed to go to that. And then, of course, the most recent filibuster by Senate Republicans on this critically important legislation to cut interest rates on student loans. They're going to double on July 1st. Oh, no. They wouldn't even let us go to the bill. And I just say, despite the protestations of Senator Brown of Massachusetts, this has got to stop. He cited 3 or 4 times we worked together. I say good for that. I'm happy for that. That does not in any way change the fact that we face filibuster after filibuster 48 times just in this Congress so far. Now, I hope every college student in this country who has an opportunity is watching this chamber. This chamber should have been bustling today with people talking and working together, offering amendments so that we could cut these interest rates on student loans. And the college students and the high school students who want to go to college and their parents and their grandparents and their aunts and uncles ought to understand that this floor is not filled today passing this legislation because of a Republican filibuster. What we do here matters. We could save students thousands of dollars on the life of their loan. These are student loans for the middle class. More than 75% of the borrowers in the program come from families with incomes below $60,000 a year. This isn't some fun and games. But my Republican friends and their presumptive presidential nominee want to cut taxes for people who earn millions of dollars. They want to give them back an average tax cut of $250,000 a year. A year. And they can't have it in their heart to lower student loans for families that earn $60,000, an average of $60,000 a year? So they call for permanent tax cuts for the people who don't need it, and they block the way, again, for us to help the middle-class students just get a break. Yes, I hope college students are paying close attention to this debate. And I know some of them from California are, the great state that I represent, because I've heard from some of them, and I'm going to put their comments into the record at this time. Delmita Turner of Rancho Cordova, California, wrote to me, I'm a single mother of 3 children, 7, 14, and 20. My daughter Kendall is in college, and we have to get student loans to help pay for her tuition. She writes, I am also in college and have student loans as well. An increase would put a tremendous strain on an already stretched budget. She says, after our families suffered nearly every type of loss one could, including death, foreclosure, divorce, and unemployment, all in a year, I decided to go back to school with the hopes of making life better for me and my family. Now, how, I ask, American is that? We always strive to be better. Now, here's a woman who went through death, foreclosure, divorce, and unemployment within 1 year. She decided she's going to make life better for her family. She began working a year ago last December after being unemployed for 2 years, and so she says, please consider how this will impact so many of us. So I am asking my Republican friends, as we have another vote on this, I think it's going to be tomorrow morning, think of Delmita Turner of California and what this means to her. And then there's Joseph Briones of San Fernando, California. He writes, I'm a senior in high school and will be attending college this fall. My dad is unemployed and a cancer survivor, and my mom is working part-time. These conditions put a large stress on myself as well as on my parents to attend my top choice of college, Westmont College. He writes, we did not receive financial aid from the state, and we have an immense amount remaining to pay for my upcoming educational years. We are going to be taking out student loans to pay for college. Please do not allow the passage of the bill that will increase the interest on student loans. We rely on these loans. It is difficult to pay them back for some students as it is. Please do not make it a larger burden for students to go to college. So tomorrow, when we take up this bill again, I hope my Republican friends will stand down and think of Joseph Briones of California, San Fernando, who is making a very poignant plea that he relies on these loans and it's going to be very difficult if the interest rates are doubled. Then there's Rachel Zavarella of San Jose, California. She says, increasing Stafford loan interest rates only kicks students and borrowers when we're down. Increasing student loan interest is another dirty trick to redistribute wealth to the top, and it's disgusting and unacceptable. I want you to vote for students and vote yes on the bill. So, Mr. President, that's just 3 stories from my state. I know in your state, your beautiful state of Oregon that has so many wonderful universities, you could have dozens of stories just like this. Clearly, this is not a time to increase loan rates for students. And this should not be a partisan matter. Why would every single Republican vote no? I guess it's their ideology. Tax breaks for the rich, 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 and nothing for the middle class. If anyone wants to know the difference between the 2 parties, this is the moment. This is the moment. You know, it used to be a little harder to describe the differences between the parties when I was young. Both parties stood here and fought for middle class. Both parties fought for students. Both parties fought for the environment. Both parties fought for women. It isn't that way anymore. It just is not. If we say we're here for the next generation, which all of us say all the time, one way or the other, then you don't allow student loans to double. You don't allow it. And we know how to fix it. We found a very simple way to fix it, a very simple way to pay for this, a way that makes sense. Closing a tax loophole doesn't hurt anybody. And so, look at yesterday's vote. It was not good. It was not pretty. I'm glad that Senator Harry Reid is going to give us another chance to change that. And I hope that my Republican friends now are hearing from their constituents back home. And I am hoping that when they come here tomorrow, they will cast a yes vote. Let us proceed to this bill. Let us do our work. Let us stand for the people who need us to stand for them, the middle class of this great country. Because you know why the country's great? Because of the middle class. And we need to make sure that they have the opportunity to go to college and not have this burden on them that's so heavy that it becomes too heavy for them to bear, and pretty soon they stop going to college because they don't want to have that burden on their back. We have a chance to do the right thing. I hope we will. So let the record show these filibusters are outrageous. They're historic in nature. We've never had them before. We've never had such a lack of cooperation from Republicans before, and it is a sad, sad several years where we have seen filibuster after filibuster, even stopping us from going to a bill. And tomorrow maybe we can come together and get on this bill and do our work. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I yield the floor, and I note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
President.
The senator from Florida.
We're in quorum call, is that correct?
We are indeed.
I ask for unanimous consent that the quorum call be suspended.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have followed with great interest this week the conversation in the Senate about student loans, the bill that we're currently on, to proceed to a bill on student loan interest. I've followed it for great interest for a couple of reasons. First of all, in the state of Florida, obviously, as across the country, there are thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people that are either on student loans and are paying them back or have relying on them to go to school in the future. So it's clearly an issue that affects the state of Florida, where I come from. And I have a personal interest in the student loan issue as well. And I think I've said this on the floor before. My parents never were able, they worked very hard, but they were never able to save enough money to pay for my college. And so I relied on grants and on loans, both for undergraduate education, but especially for my law school education. I came back to Miami to go to law school, and I'm glad I went to the University of Miami. If they're watching, I'm proud to have gone there, and I think the education I got there, my legal education, was very good. It also happened to be very, very expensive, and I relied on student loans to be able to pay that, so much so that when I graduated from law school in 1996, I graduated with a law degree and a significant amount of student debt that I had accumulated throughout 7 years of studies. In fact, I'm still paying one of those loans today. I may be wrong, but I know of only one other senator who is paying student loans right now. I pay, as I've joked in the past, about $723 a month to somebody named Sally Mae, who is, all joking aside, is the servicer that collects on these loans. So it's an issue that I understand, and it's an issue that I care about, both on a personal level, but also because of the people that I represent. It's also an issue, by the way, this week that's allowed me to maybe use it as a point of illustration to the people back home that are watching this debate. One of the questions I get the most after my first year here is, one of the questions that people always ask me is, what is it like in the Senate? And let me begin by saying I'm honored and privileged to serve here. There isn't a day that I don't walk into this building, even to this very room, and not be taken back by the history that's been made on this floor, by the great men and women that have served our country from it, and by the wonderful Americans that I serve with even now. As I have bragged to people who are watching, either that I talk to or whatever, I've never had a bad experience with anyone in the Senate in the year and a half that I've been here, and I'm very proud to be a part of this institution. But there are things about it that trouble me, particularly at this moment in American history, and maybe this week allows us to illustrate that better than any other week since I've been here. Everyone agrees that interest rates on student loans cannot go up. Everyone agrees on this. There hasn't really been a debate on that. I haven't run into anybody in either party that has come to me or I've heard them say, you know what, let the interest rate go up, let students pay more. There isn't any argument about that. The argument is simply this: how do we pay for it? We have to pay for it. Because if we're going to keep the interest rates on these federally subsidized loans, if we're going to keep the interest rate down, we have to pay for it. We have to find the money from somewhere to pay for it. And so the debate really, and the disagreement, to the extent that it's a complicated disagreement, I don't believe that it is, the disagreement is not about the student interest rates. The disagreement is about how do we pay for the cost of keeping the rates low for another year. And there's a difference of opinion. Now, I'm new to the Senate. I'm not new to legislation. I spent 9 years in the Florida legislature, 2 years as the Speaker. We dealt with complicated issues there as well. And what we would do in those instances where there was a disagreement, not on what we wanted to accomplish, but on how to get there, is you work on it. You sit people down and you say, okay, you know, it's not that much money in terms of by federal standards. Sounds crazy to say that because we're talking about millions of dollars, or billions of dollars, but from federal standards, it's not that complicated an issue. Let's sit down, let's get some like-minded people together, and let's figure out a bipartisan way to pay for what we all agree we need to do. That is the normal, regular way to deal with an issue like this. That is not what's happened here. Why hasn't that happened here? Why are smart, well-educated, intelligent people that serve in this chamber, why have they not met and discussed a way to pay for this? Because it's not really that complicated. It wouldn't take that long to come up with a way to pay for it that both sides agree on. Why hasn't that happened? And the answer to that question is something people back home are not going to like, people that are here today visiting are not going to like to hear, and whoever's watching on television right now isn't going to like. And the reason is because that's the way things have been here since I've gotten here. It's about politics. Shocking as that may be, there is politics in this process, and it's what's influencing this here today. A few weeks ago, the President made a decision that this was an issue that he wanted to use. His campaign and his folks made a decision that student loan debt and the interest rate was a perfect opportunity to use yet again another wedge issue. The latest wedge issue, and you've seen a series of them, the latest wedge issue is let's campaign on the idea that Republicans are not in favor of students. And let's use the student loan issue as an example of that. Of course, those plans kind of got messed up when Republicans said, no, we agree with you. We can't let student interest rates go up either. So they were off balance for a couple of days, even though, by the way, the president continued to travel the country and campaign on keeping student loan rates down, even though no one was against him. He was campaigning against his opponents on this issue, even though there were no opponents on this issue. But nevertheless, after a couple of days of figuring out, hey, we're going to lose this wedge issue, they came up with a second way to deal with it. And that is, let's bring this issue to a vote on the floor, but let's build it in such a way, let's put a bill on the floor of the Senate that we know will fail, that we know Republicans can't vote on. Let's kind of meet and see where we can agree on how to pay for this so we can get something done. It's, let's put a bill on the floor that we know Republicans will never support, designed specifically to fail, so that we can then spend a week talking about this on the Sunday talk shows, in speeches on the floor, in missives from the campaign. It's about messaging. And in a country where our national debt now equals the size of our economy, in a country where we are 5-6 months away from catastrophic increases in taxes, in a country who just last Friday we learned job creation and job growth is stagnant, where millions of Americans have been out of work for 2 years or longer, in a country where millions of Americans have stopped looking for work, they've become so depressed. The United States Senate has wasted yet another week on a show, when in fact this is an easy issue for us to have come together and solved. This is not new, by the way. This has been the mode of operation here for most of the weeks that I've been in the United States Senate. It's a pretty familiar pattern. The campaign of the president decides on an issue they want to use to divide Americans for electoral purposes. The Senate offers up a bill they know Republicans will vote against, and then they spend a week giving speeches on. The only difference with this one is they're doubling down on it. We're going to vote on the exact same thing a second time, just to drive the point home. Here's why this bothers me. Number one, because there are real issues this country faces, issues that deserve a sense of urgency, issues that deserve every single person that serves here to solve them. This is one of them, by the way. We don't have time to waste on shows. It bothers me. The second reason why it bothers me is these are real people that are being impacted by this issue. There are real people out there that because they can't find a job when they graduate, they've got to get a forbearance. Forbearance means they've got to call their lender and say, I can't pay you. You know what happens when you get a forbearance on your loan? It compounds. It sits there unpaid. You're not delinquent. They give you a grace period where you don't have to pay it, but it compounds. The interest rate is added to the principal. And so by the time you start paying it, your loan is even bigger than the loan when you took out of college. There are other people that can only afford to make X amount of payments a month because they're not making as much money. Maybe they didn't find the job they thought they were going to have. So all they can do is pay the interest on the loan. You know what that means? That means that by the time they finish paying off these loans, their kids will be in college. And let me tell you what it means in the real life of someone that has a loan, because I had these loans, and I still have one. What it means in the real life of a person that has a loan like this is the following. You can't save for your own kids' college, which means not only will you have student loan debt, but your children will be stuck with student loan debt as well. And what bothers me about this issue is that instead of solving it, we have spent a week playing a game with it, while real people are out there scared to death. Real students, real parents, real families who are facing the threat not just of this increase in the interest rate, but of an economy that doesn't have a job for them. You think the interest rate is the biggest risk that these people are running? It is not. The interest rate is a problem. Not having a job is a catastrophe. The interest rate could be zero. If you don't have a job, how are you going to pay it? And that's the number one issue facing these graduates. And no one is doing anything about it. Now, what I would suggest, if this was a place that was really working to solve problems, what we would have done, what we would do right now is stop this process, go back there somewhere, get a few of people that know how to solve this together, and come back here. I guarantee you that if we decide we want to solve it, it won't take long. Here's what else I guarantee you. This is going to get solved. You mark my words, a few weeks from now, they'll come up with a deal or a bill that will have enough votes to pass the House and Senate, and this will get solved. But not before we score political points, right? This will get solved, but not before the people that care more about politics than policy score their political points on this issue. Now, look, I've been around politics. I understand that this is an election year, and election year stuff is going to happen. But why are we playing with the lives of real people? These are real people that are hurting here. And their lives and their experiences and their worries are being used as a pawn in a political game, and it's wrong. And I'll make another prediction to you. Next week, it'll be another wedge issue of the week. Next week, we'll be right back here debating another bill that was designed to fail on purpose so that we can give another week's worth of talking points on yet another issue. The good news is that people in this city, unfortunately, think they're smarter than they really are. People back home know all this. They can see it for what it is. People aren't dumb. The American people certainly aren't dumb. They can see right through this stuff, and they understand exactly what's happening here. So my suggestion would be that on this issue, let's come together. Let's say this is one of the issues that's so important, that impacts so many people in such a significant way that it should be above politics. Let's get together over the next 48 hours. It doesn't sound like this place is overworked. If you look around the room here, what are we doing all week? What's going on all week? We voted on a few judges, and we've given a bunch of speeches. Why don't we go somewhere and get a group of people to work on this issue and come back with a solution? This can be solved. But what's going on now is a disservice to the people that sent us here. They deserve better. They really do. The American people deserve better. The people that we represent, the people that hired us to do the job we have now, they deserve better than this sort of theater. The Senate's become a theater. It's become a show. And that's why people get grossed out by politics. That's why people watch the news at night and just don't understand this whole thing. They have a right to be frustrated. They have a right to be upset. They have a right to be impatient with us. Because nothing is happening on the issues that matter to their real lives. I hope this pattern will stop. Look, I get it. There's still going to be plenty of other issues that we're going to have an argument about in this election. And that's good for our country, that we have a good debate on the issues of the day. But on the ones that we can solve, on the ones that we agree on that impact the real lives of real people, stop the games. And let's get something done. Thank you. I yield the floor. And I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.